I was called the shame of the family at my sister's wedding. A text message proved them wrong. The champagne was still cold when they put my name on the screen. Not to celebrate me, to destroy me. I watched from the back of the room, table 17, next to the kitchen door, as 200 people read the words my own family had prepared. Divorced, broke, lone, infertile. Each word appeared one at a time. Each word got a laugh. My sister Paige stood at the microphone in her wedding dress, mascara perfect, smile wide, and said, "Don't worry about her. She's used to this." 200 people laughed. My father raised his glass. My mother looked at her nails. And I looked down at my phone, at the one word I had typed 20 minutes ago and never sent. Begin. My thumb hovered over the button. I gave them one last chance to stop. They didn't stop. So I pressed send. My name is Claire. I'm 36 years old. I'm a structural engineer. I own my home. I have a master's degree and 2 industry awards sitting on my office shelf. None of that was on the screen that night. What was on the screen was every painful chapter of my life. My divorce, my medical diagnosis, my years of financial struggle, turned into a slideshow. With sound effects, an emoji. At my sister's wedding. In front of her new husband's entire family. To understand how I got to that moment, you have to understand what kind of family I come from. My father, Robert, built his reputation the way some men build houses, one carefully placed brick at a time, for decades, until the structure became so tall that no one questioned what was underneath. In our town he was respected, generous at church, first to volunteer, known for his handshake. At home he was a different man entirely. He had one rule above all others. The family image comes first. Always. My mother Sandra had lived by that rule for 35 years. She had ironed it into her posture, painted it onto her smile, and passed it down to my sister Paige like a family heirloom. Paige received it gratefully. I never did. It started when I was 19. I had been accepted to a university 3 states away. Full merit scholarship, engineering program, the thing I had worked toward since I was 14 years old. The night I told my father. He sat at the head of the dinner table and said nothing for a very long time. Then he said, "Who approved this?" I told him I didn't need approval. The scholarship covered everything. I had already signed the enrollment forms. He picked up his fork and continued eating. That was the last civil conversation we had for 2 years. He didn't come to my orientation. He didn't call on my birthday. When I came home for Christmas that first year, he shook my hand at the door like I was a distant relative he barely remembered. My mother watched all of this and said nothing. Paige watched all of this and learned. I went back to university after that Christmas and I didn't come home again for a long time. The years that followed were mine in a way that no years before them had been. I struggled. I worked 2 jobs while carrying a full course load. I ate badly, slept less, and studied until my eyes gave out. I graduated. No one came to the ceremony. I stood on that stage in my cap and gown, shook the dean's hand, and walked back to my seat alone. Afterward I went to a diner near campus and ate pancakes by myself and decided that this particular kind of alone, was not the worst thing in the world. I got my master's degree 2 years later. Still no one came. At 27, I married a man named Daniel. He was warm and funny and we were happy for 3 years before we slowly, painfully weren't anymore. The divorce was quiet. No cruelty, no drama. Just 2 people who had grown in directions that no longer overlapped. At 29, a doctor told me I would not be able to have biological children. I sat in that office for a long time after the doctor left. Then I drove home. Sat on my kitchen floor. And I cried. Not because my life was over, but because I had to grieve something I had not even fully let myself want yet. I told no one in my family. Which meant somehow Paige found out anyway. I should explain how Paige works. Paige is 3 years younger than me and has always understood something I never did. That in our family, information is currency. She collected it, traded it, spent it at exactly the right moments for exactly the right effect. She found out about my diagnosis through Daniel, who had stayed loosely in touch with our mother after the divorce. She filed it away. She found out about my financial struggles during the lean years after my first job ended. She filed that away too. She knew about every hard chapter of my life. Not because she cared about me, but because she was building something. I just didn't know what until the night of her wedding. 6 weeks before the wedding, Paige called me. It was the first time we had spoken in almost a year. She told me she was getting married. She told me his name was Marcus, that his family was well connected, that the wedding would be the social event of the season in our town. Then she said, "I want you there, Claire. We're family." I should have heard the pause after that sentence more carefully. Instead, I said yes. 2 weeks before the wedding, I drove home. My parents' house hadn't changed. Same white columns, same trimmed hedges, same American flag by the door. The architecture of respectability. Dinner was polite in the way that some silences are polite, technically harmless, deeply uncomfortable. My father asked what I was doing with myself. I told him I was a senior structural engineer at a firm in the city. He nodded like I had told him about the weather. My mother passed the bread. Paige talked about the wedding for 45 minutes without once asking me a single question. When I left that night, my mother walked me to the door and pressed a garment bag into my arms. "Something to wear to the ceremony," she said. Something understated. Inside was a shapeless gray dress, 2 sizes too large, the kind of thing you'd wear to disappear. I drove back to my hotel and hung it in the closet. I wore my own dress to the wedding. I need to tell you about James. James is my colleague, my closest friend, and the person who has had my back for the past 7 years without ever once making me feel like a burden for needing it. When I told James about the wedding, about the family dinner, about the gray dress, about the feeling in my stomach that something was being planned, he didn't tell me I was imagining things. He said, "If you're walking into something, you walk in prepared." James worked in IT before he came to engineering. He understood systems. He understood how things could be interrupted. When he found out the wedding reception venue had hired a small AV crew, and that they were short 1 technician for the evening, he applied for the position. He got it. By the time I walked into that reception hall, James was already behind the sound booth with access to the projector, the speakers, and every USB port in the building. I had given him a drive. On it, a presentation I had built across 3 quiet evenings in my apartment. Not an attack, just the truth. My degrees, my license, my projects, my awards. 6 slides, clean, factual. And 1 final slide, white text on black. "You taught me that my value was conditional. I spent 15 years proving you wrong." The trigger was a text message. 1 word. Begin. James told me the same thing he always tells me when something is hard. You don't have to use it, but you'll feel better knowing it's there. The ceremony was beautiful, in the way that things built entirely on performance can be beautiful. Paige was radiant. Marcus looked genuinely in love. The flowers were extraordinary. I sat in the last row. No one saved me a seat closer. No one waved me forward. An usher passed me without eye contact. My father, near the front, worked the aisle like a campaign trail. Handshakes, shoulder claps, laughter. He didn't look back. My mother sat beside him in a custom ivory dress, whispering to the woman beside her. I caught 1 sentence across the rows. "Both my girls are here. Even the complicated one." The woman beside her glanced toward the back. I looked at the flowers. The reception was held at Hargrove Hall. Crystal chandeliers, white linen, the smell of gardenia and old money. I was seated at table 17. Back corner. Right beside the kitchen door. Every time a server pushed through, a wave of noise and heat hit me from behind. My tablemates were a distant cousin who didn't know my name, and an elderly couple absorbed entirely in each other. No one spoke to me for the first 40 minutes except to ask me to pass the salt. Across the room, I could see Marcus's mother Eleanor at the head table. She was silver-haired and precise, the kind of woman who listens more than she speaks and misses nothing. She hadn't looked my way. Not yet. Paige's maid of honor took the microphone after the first toast. She had the bright, rehearsed energy of someone who had practiced this moment in front of a mirror. And now, a very special presentation from the Hargrove family. The lights dimmed. Soft music played through the speakers. Photos of Paige filled the screen. Childhood. Prom. Holidays. Paige laughing. Paige glowing. Paige and Marcus at a vineyard, at a football game, at Christmas with his family. I was not in a single photograph. The room smiled and cooed and raised their glasses. Then the music shifted. Playful drum roll. And now, let's meet the rest of the family. Paige looked across the room directly at me. And smiled. Under the table, my phone was already in my hand. Begin. I made myself a promise. If the next slide was gentle, an old photo, a kind caption, something that could be mistaken for affection, I would not send it. I would sit. I would smile. I would let them have the night. One last chance. The screen changed. My face. An old photo. Deliberately unflattering. Bold letters underneath. Yours. Laughter spread through the room like a warm wave. Bro. More laughter. Someone at a nearby table said something I couldn't hear and the people around them erupted. Alone. Paige was laughing at the head table. Her hand over her mouth. Her shoulders shaking. And then the final slide. Cartoon image. Red X. Infertile. The room went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then the laughter came back. Confused, uncomfortable. Feeding on itself the way laughter does when people aren't sure if they're allowed to stop. Paige leaned into the microphone. Don't worry about her. She's used to this. My father caught my eye from the head table. It's a joke, sweetheart. Lighten up. My mother lifted her glass slightly, a small private toast to herself, and looked away. I looked down at my phone. I thought about the doctor's office, the kitchen floor, the pancakes at the diner, the stage I had walked across alone 3 times, while this family looked the other way. I thought about every gray dress. My thumb pressed send. 3 seconds. The music stopped. The screen went black. Paige frowned. Technical issues. Can someone? The screen came back. White text on dark background. The truth about Claire Hargrove. The room went absolutely still. My father stood. Turn that off. Right now. James did not move. The first slide appeared. Me at my university graduation. Cap and gown. Lone. Smiling anyway. No one from my family came to my graduation. I went anyway. A woman at the table beside mine put her hand to her mouth. Second slide. My engineering license. Framed. Licensed structural engineer. Registered and practicing. The murmur started low and spread. Third slide. Me on a job site. Hard hat, blueprints, steel and concrete behind me. Senior engineer. 7 years. 14 completed projects. Fourth slide. An award plaque. Regional Engineering Excellence Award. 2-time recipient. At the head table, Eleanor, Marcus's mother, set down her glass very slowly. Her eyes moved from the screen to my face. She recognized something. Fifth slide. Clean text. You called me divorced. I survived a hard marriage with my dignity intact. You called me broke. I own my home. You called me alone. Chose carefully. You called me infertile. That is my private grief. Not your punchline. And the final slide. You taught me that my value in this family was conditional. I spent 15 years proving that it wasn't. I stood up from table 17. I didn't walk to the microphone. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood in the back corner beside the kitchen door, and I looked toward the front of the room. My father moved first. He crossed the floor with his shoulders back and his jaw set, the walk of a man who has silenced rooms before and expects to do so again. He stopped 2 feet from me and lowered his voice. You have embarrassed this family for the last time. Sit down. I looked at him. You put my medical records on a screen for 200 strangers, I said. And you're worried about embarrassment. Sit down. No. I don't think anyone had said that to him in a very long time. From the head table, a chair scraped back. Marcus stood. He looked at his new wife. then at the screen, then at me. Let her speak. Paige grabbed his arm. Marcus. He stepped away from her hand. Something is wrong here, Paige. I want to understand it. The room shifted. I could feel it, the way a crowd recalibrates when someone unexpected breaks rank. My mother rose from her seat. Claire, please. You're humiliating yourself. No, Mother, I said. For the first time, I'm not. Eleanor Whitmore walked toward me through the center of the room. She moved like a woman who has never needed to hurry. Measured, deliberate, certain. She stopped beside me and looked at the screen. Then she looked at my father. Robert. Her voice was quiet. Carried anyway. The woman your family just put on display. I know her work. Her firm consulted on the Whitmore Cultural Center last year. She designed the load-bearing restoration on the East Wing. My father blinked. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't bother to know your own daughter. She turned back to him fully. I came to this wedding prepared to welcome your family into ours. What I witnessed tonight will take me a long time to forget. She looked at Marcus. We'll speak privately. Tonight. Paige broke. Not quietly. She moved to the center of the room, tears already falling, voice pitched perfectly for sympathy. She's ruining my wedding. She planned this. She's always been jealous. She's always wanted to take things from me. Marcus looked at her. She's a 2-time award-winning engineer, Paige. And you put infertile on a screen at our wedding. It was a joke. Which part? Eleanor said. The silence that followed was total. Paige opened her mouth. Nothing came out. My mother tried. She moved toward Eleanor with 35 years of social polish. Eleanor, please, this is a family matter. You made it a public matter, Eleanor said. When you put it on a screen. My father looked at me. For the first time in my memory, he looked uncertain. Claire. I didn't come here to do this, I said. I came because she asked me to come. Because I thought, one more time, that maybe things could be different. I looked at Paige. They put everything on that screen. My divorce. My finances. My diagnosis. Things I never shared with them. Things they collected like ammunition. I am not your punchline. I am not your cautionary tale. I am not the family shame. I am an engineer. Built things. Built myself. And I did it while every one of you looked the other way. I picked up my clutch from table 17. If you want me in your life, it starts with respect. Not conditions. Not performances. And if you can't do that, I looked at all 3 of them. My father, my mother, my sister. Then this is goodbye. I walked out. James was in the parking lot. 2 coffees from the petrol station down the road. Still warm. He handed me one without a word and we sat in my car with the engine off and watched the hall lights through the windshield. You okay? Not really, I said. But I'm better than I've been in years. My phone buzzed. Marcus. I'm sorry for what happened tonight. Paige and I have a lot to work through. I hope you know none of that was acceptable. Eleanor. Your work on the Whitmore Center was exceptional. I look forward to speaking with you properly without the theater. I set the phone face down on my knee. I didn't respond to my father. I didn't respond to my mother. I didn't respond to Paige. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. In white text on a dark screen, in front of 200 people who would not soon forget it. The weeks that followed were strange and quiet. My father lost 2 business partnerships within the month. One cited misalignment of values. The other didn't give a reason. My mother was quietly removed from the charity gala committee she had chaired for 11 years. No announcement. Just a polite email from Eleanor's assistant. Paige and Marcus entered couples counseling. I heard this from Marcus himself, who sent a short message 3 weeks after the wedding. He was trying. Paige was resistant. He didn't know where it was going. I didn't respond with anything except, I hope you find your way through it. My father called once. He didn't apologize. He asked if we could move past this. I told him moving past something required first acknowledging what it was. He said he didn't see it that way. I said I knew. And I hung up. My mother sent a text message 2 weeks later. Sorry. 2 words. I read it 4 times. I thought about what it had taken her to send it. I thought about every moment she had looked the other way. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I'm not ready. And that is allowed. This morning I stood in front of my mirror. White blouse, navy blazer, hair pulled back. On my desk, a project brief for a new commission. Community library in a town 3 hours north. Small budget, big heart. The kind of work that reminds me why I do this. Have a meeting at 9. A site visit at 2. My life, the one I built from scratch in silence without permission or applause, is full and real and mine. They called me divorced, broke, alone, infertile. They put it on a screen for 200 people. And all they proved, the only thing they proved, was that they never knew me at all. You don't need your family's permission to be somebody. You just need to stop waiting for it. Pick up my keys. I walk out the door.